Do you think you being so connected to the first generation, the owners of GT Chickens, has helped you with your culture and instill this preservation of the product that it originally was when you started in 83?
Look, I think yes, but I also think that it's part and parcel of what I foresee for the business.
Yep.
It's definitely something which I have sort of a strong belief in.
Yep, 100%. Do you think the industry has the regulations right without pissing anyone off or creating?
If I'm being completely honest, I think
you don't
it's
have
probably there's not enough players in the processing game, and that's always an issue because obviously the market is dominated by a few big players, and at the end of the day, there aren't really many options. As a business person, I think it showed you who was willing to work with you.
Yep. And
it showed you who probably wasn't.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for you? Hi all again. We're back. Today I have John Kontonis from GT Chickens. We met on LinkedIn.
That's the one.
Big fan of LinkedIn. We had a really good chat. We've been talking about this for a few months.
Yeah.
First question for you. How was Europe?
It's good, mate. It was definitely an eye-opener.
In what way?
Look, just to see, I think, in particular, how times are changing around the world. Mm-hmm. I think there's a big discrepancy everywhere between the top sort of 5% and the bottom earners.
100%, man.
And I think in particular where we're seeing the huge divide now, especially in Australia, is that middle class going. And where I see it in Europe is I just see that even more so now more than ever. I think in particular where I saw it was, I've got Greek background.
Yep.
Parents both live in Greece.
My best friend's Greek, mate.
Sorry to hear that.
He's all right. Shout out to Trine.
So migrated here in the, early 80s, late 70s. So I just to see sort of the discrepancy over there in terms of, still a lot of Greeks doing it tough.
Yeah.
But when I was on holiday, there was the majority of the tourists were Greek from Greece.
Yeah, because they know how special it is, and they know what they've got.
Look, that's one of the things.
Question I've got for you. You've been with GT Chickens now, 13 and a bit years, thereabouts, 14?
Yeah.
What have you seen change in sort of food culture? A lot's been happening in Melbourne, a lot overseas. What do you see changing at the moment? What's changed?
I guess a little bit about GT Chickens and my involvement there. So it's a family-owned business.
Yep.
So that's
83?
83.
Yep.
So I was born 84, so I was born into this business.
Great.
So literally born into the business. So it's been a pretty big journey in terms of what I've seen. I've seen a lot of changes, in particular with food, with eating, with how the market has sort of shifted throughout the years.
Such as, what do you mean by shifted market? Because I know your product well. A lot of my friends know your product well. They were very excited that you were coming on today.
That's great to hear.
And I'm like, where do we get them? But what are you seeing in that change, that scope? What do you see, mate?
Well, if we go back, I think to, and obviously a lot of it's hearsay in terms of, when I was 10, I didn't really know too much about the business, but obviously back then we had a lot of skilled staff in Australia.
Yep.
Predominantly, our business was just involved and surrounded selling whole chickens.
Yep.
Chefs then would cut up the chicken, they'd butcher it up, and then be served at a restaurant, a pub, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and you guys saw the opportunity to
value. Yeah, and then obviously there was an opportunity for us where it was like, hey, chicken schnitzels are, was becoming a pretty big thing in Australia, and Aussie love the chicken schnitzel. So, why not try and, capture that market? So again, as time progressed, as I think different types of immigrants came into Australia.
Yep.
Skilled workers, unskilled workers. It was a good opportunity, for example, to see how people sort of changed their eating habits, how chefs or, in particular owners, where they wanted to cut costs. So rather than having a chef, butterfly a piece of chicken breast, well, why not buy it ready?
Yeah.
So, in particular those last sort of 13 years where I ended up becoming sort of general manager and then buying into the business. And
that was going to be a question for you because I looked on your LinkedIn and I'm like, okay, is it family business? It is, but then you've bought, okay.
So it was initially a partnership between my father and my uncle.
Yep.
my uncle was a bit older than my dad.
Happens.
So I bought my uncle out in 2017.
Shit, that would have been a big moment for you.
Look, it was. It was a
Like, it would have really something,
It was definitely a.
because he wouldn't have made it. They wouldn't have made it easy for you. It wasn't a free ride.
Definitely.
You paid market price.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. A lot of people thought, oh shit, the bloke's born into with the silver spoon in his mouth. It was like, well, fuck no. It was at the end of the day where I'm paying market value to buy this business, but it wasn't any of that. It was, and again, I think a lot of my stories link into my dad being a migrant. He was always like, work smart, not hard.
Yep.
Go to uni, you don't want to be like me working all the time. With that being said, I never really paid any attention to the business.
Yeah.
And there were times growing up where, it was obvious that we were sort of doing it tough, with businesses, especially around then. But then there were times where, I thought, well, hang on, we must be living a comfortable.
We're doing all right.
We're doing okay too. So it was never one of the things I never really looked into it too much because I was always, I guess always wanting to please my dad.
I get it.
So it was like, let's go to uni.
It was a little while ago when you bought in 2017, but how were the staff and the management around? Because obviously you had the family connection to the business. Okay. And I know a couple of, especially Greek families, but a couple of family businesses when the next generations come into the business where they've bought or sweat equity or whatever, it creates a bit of the staff. Some of it don't give a shit, and they're like, "Yep, cool." Others things are like they don't like change. How did you sort of progress that?
That's a pretty good point. The truth is, it was difficult.
Yep.
Because, like I said, we've got staff members who've been with us from day dot.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is great. Because it shows we've got a good culture. And people obviously want to stick around.
Yep.
But with that being said, they were probably the most difficult to deal with because it was like, you were a baby and now you're telling me what to do.
And we've always done it this way.
That's exactly right. So it was difficult. I almost had to sort of gain their trust.
Yeah, correct.
Rather than it being the other way around, it was like, I had to gain the employees' trust and be like, look,
we're not going to fuck this up.
I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know that you remember me as a little baby, or, little John as it was. Now times have changed. So first off, I guess building that whole culture around, hey, you are someone who we're going to have to respect as a boss, even though we've seen you grow up as a kid. But then also dealing with that, clashing of heads of, changing and getting into the 21st century. Because even when I first started with the business, it was still run very old school. It didn't matter how much we were turning over. It didn't matter, how big the business was. There was still, paper invoicing. There was still things like that. So it was like getting the business into.
Why do we need email? The fax machine works perfectly fine.
Fax machine orders and, writing, paper invoices, it took,
the carbon book,
carbon copies of, and it was like, the big customers, we needed to write them 3 times just in case you lost one book.
Correct.
So it was,
we obviously, owning a recruitment business myself, I understand how labor intensive food manufacturing is today. Okay. It is insane. Okay. And your biggest liability by far would be wages. Obviously, good staff are hard to get. You want to look after them. How have you kind of, integrated technology, packaging solutions into GT Chickens? Because I'm assuming you'd be on the forefront of that just by the way you and I have been interacting. That'd be something that you got to be on.
Look, we've tried to implement as much as possible in terms of keeping our product as original as to what it initially began. So, at the end of the day, we sell a hand-cut chicken stitch product. I always want to keep it hand-cut.
Yep, fair enough.
So there are options, for example, we get approached by, companies all the time and they're saying, let me sell you an automatic slicer. It's great. Theoretically, that cuts out 5-6 staff.
Correct, but it changes the shape of the product.
It changes the shape of the product. It changes just, the core value of it. At the end of the day, we're still trying to sell a hand-cut product. So, for us, it's about staying true to our core values, which are selling a real chicken schnitzel. I know it sort of sounds corny at times, and there was a big sort of shift. And again, I guess it goes back to what you asked before, how has food changed over the years, and especially in those 13 years. There was a time there where, a formed product or a processed product was really popular because it was cheap, and the market wanted something cheap.
Yeah.
And we were like, you know what? We're not doing it. We're not doing it because we want to stick true to this, natural muscle, real chicken schnitzel. There are opportunities that were lost at that stage because obviously prisons, aged care, they didn't really give a shit what they were eating. But then it went full circle. It went full circle and people started, and I think in particular in Australia, we became very health conscious over the last sort of, 6 to 7 years.
The fitness influence has exploded.
That's exactly right. So people were like, you know what, if we're going to eat something, we want to eat something which is healthy, which is real, and there's no additives. That was the whole thing about chicken is over these years that they've pushed that it's hormone free, that it's steroid free, antibiotic free, all this sort of stuff. So I think it was only natural that it was going to come to that again.
Do you think the industry has the regulations right? Do you feel like you're over-regulated without pissing anyone off or creating,
depends who's watching.
Absolutely. I don't want you. I would like you to come back at some stage without a target on your back. Tav was really good chat, but I've had a lot of hate mail. Yeah.
Nah, look, I think chicken's it's in a good place.
Yep.
In terms of regulations, in terms of how they're processing it. If I'm being completely honest, I think it's probably there's not enough players in the processing game, and that's always an issue because obviously the market is dominated by a few big players, and at the end of the day, there aren't really many options.
Do you think you being so connected to the first generation owners of GT Chickens has helped you with your culture and instill this, preservation of the product that it originally was and when it started in 83?
Look, I think yes, but I also think that it's part and parcel of what I foresee for the business.
Yep.
It's definitely something which I have sort of strong belief in.
Yep, 100%.
At the end of the day, you can bastardize any product. But it's just what does it get you? Like I think for me, what sort of created good customer relationships, good supplier relationships is the fact that we've sort of stayed true to what we're doing.
Yep.
There were times where maybe you didn't make enough money, maybe there were other options and cut costs and find a way to make more money. But at the end of the day, we've stayed true to what our core values are in terms of making a real product. Trying to keep people happy with the consistent
marketable product.
Yeah.
Like you talk about, quality of product, staying true to the core values of what you started.
Yeah.
How do you feel the cost of living that's going on, and the issues at the moment that are going on at the moment is affecting the consumption of your product? Or it's not really because it's now deemed more healthy and it's more people are going away from processed foods?
Look, it is difficult. It's difficult because I am seeing a switch to especially your smaller sort of takeaway shops, cafes, things like that. They're trying to save. If they can save 10 cents a schnitzel, then they're going to save 10 cents a schnitzel. So
it's crazy.
At the end of the day, I do believe that cost of living and look, I think a nice example of how inflation doesn't always work in the correct way is, and again, going back to, so initially we go back to 1985.
Yep. Okay.
They were buying chicken at $1.50 a kilo.
Yep.
We were selling breast fillet back then for $13-14.
Yep.
You fast forward now, and as of this week, I'm paying $4.10 a kilo.
Yep.
And we're selling breast fillet at $9.50. So,
there's not a lot of margin in that.
No, definitely. You know what I mean? This is the problem. The problem is that as chicken became a popular protein, and it keeps becoming a more and more popular protein.
Yep.
It is the most cost effective. It is the cheapest protein out there on the market with pork. And they can raise birds and they can kill them at a relatively low cost.
Correct.
So
the bird that they're, sorry to interrupt, but the bird that they're killing there, is that the bird you want because it's been pumped full of?
Well, look, now the birds are good. Now, with all honesty, they're not pumped with water. They are hormone free. They are chicken in Australia is actually really good.
Okay, right.
So the one thing, and this also makes it a problem too with when we go back to the price of living, and it makes it difficult because our chicken is so good. The export market is so strong. And because the export market is so strong, Vietnam, China, they would take our chicken any day of the week.
So you can't keep up with overseas at the moment?
Look, we don't do export.
Why not?
But look, it's just there's a lot of rules and regulations in place with it.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably, it's always there. It's always something I've thought about. At the moment, I think domestic market for me is more of a place to sort of look at.
Fair enough.
But by all means, I think, the processors in particular, all have a very strong presence in the export market.
Yep.
Chicken feet, you can't keep up with chicken feet. There's only two.
I just learned something new today.
there's only two per chicken. And, I think the number of containers that get exported every week, we would never be able to keep up with China's demand.
I just learned something. James, have you learned something as well?
Yeah. So look, go to Yum Cha, you'll get those steamed chicken feet.
I didn't. You know what? It amazes me where people make money. Like the people I've had on this podcast, right? And then you hear this story and you go, "What? Like, how is that?" I think I already know the answer to this, but describe your leadership style, as in for this, because you got a big business. You're supplying a massive domestic need. Prices here, you're capped here, but you still got to keep your shit together, cool, calm, and collected to run the team.
Look, I think my management style I'm probably too soft, but
guilty of that.
Look, it works to my advantage and it works to my disadvantage. Look, I think still doesn't matter how big the business gets. I still like to think of us all as a family.
Okay.
I know it sounds a little bit, romantic.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the truth is we're all in it together. And if we all succeed, we're all doing good.
I like you refer to yours as a family. I refer to my business as a dysfunctional circus.
Well, look, trust me, we're dysfunctional, that's for sure. But the analogy of the family is not so much that we all get along, but there's arguing, there's infighting, there's all sorts of different, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously if someone, especially on the production shop floor, doesn't pay attention or their culture, they're going to hurt themselves badly or create a problem. And
look, I think where I've seen, I think the biggest change throughout the year, and obviously where it's the hardest to tell a 76-year-old Greek man, for example, my dad still likes to come into work every day. If he gets the chance, he'll come in every day.
Do you still expect his car park?
No, he doesn't. So luckily for that. But he'd come in every day if he could. He doesn't need to. He's retired, semi-retired, whatever you want to call him. But with that being said, it's instilling that change where, getting people to, for me, one of the biggest things was letting go. I think
Tell me more.
Part of, I think, my management style was accepting that I can't do everything.
Yep.
And that there's probably going to be someone who can do something better than me. So not wearing all the caps, not wearing, my accounting cap, not wearing my management cap, not wearing, my production cap.
Yeah.
So depending on which situation I'm in, I can probably deal with it all. But understanding that, hey, there's someone, if I can hire someone who's going to sit there and take care of production for me or take care of my accounts payable or my accounts receivable, because like any family business, there's a time where you do it all.
Oh, fuck yeah.
You do it all and you think to yourself, well, why am I going to pay someone X amount of money when I can do it myself?
Bandwidth. You only got so much bandwidth.
That's exactly right. And that's where, and you know what? And I think even from the personal perspective, you're only capable of doing so much without being burnt out.
Correct.
So I don't know if it answers your question, but I think my management style it took me a while, but learning to accept that I can't do everything right. And
that's a sign of a leader.
Well, look, I'd like to think so.
Yeah, because you acknowledging that you cannot do it all yourself, right? And here's what I've said. I've interviewed a few people on this. Is you got to learn to get out of your. I believe you got to learn to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually physically stop myself. I've discussed this loads of times where I love jumping on the shop floor and doing recruitment. It's my happy place. But I only do it if I'm having shit fucking elsewhere going, I'll just go do some recruitment for a bit to just be my happy place. To realize that that's not my skill set these days. My skill set is to come back, train staff, make sure that we're moving forward unity. And you've got a very important brand name. Like your brand is strong. Like there's like people probably try all the time to knock you off your perch, pardon the pun, you know?
Unfortunately, yeah.
But like
probably after this podcast even more.
I would love that to happen for you because I think more business leaders like yourself should be podcasting because one, it's fun. You're a bit nervous at the start, you know. It's fun. You have a chat, you learn some stuff, and you know what? You never know what someone then value you're going to get out of it after watching this.
Yeah,
I've had a load of people reach out to us and go, "Hey, you know, it's interesting sort of stuff." As a business leader, and as someone who's involved heavily in a family business, do you think personal brand and direction and digital and bracing is the way forward for the food industry?
I think there's an important part in it. I think, I'm pretty big into technology and I'm pretty big into seeing how I can implement different types of tech into our business. Now, it always doesn't translate into obviously making a chicken schnitzel.
No.
But it translates into things like, ChatGPT, things like AI. They have a very important role to play.
It plugs both into this.
It plays a very, very important part in, I think, every business is eventually going to use some sort of AI.
Even if they want to or not.
That's exactly right. So we're in a position now where I think it's either, and I have a keen interest in it. If it wasn't, if it's not, for example, me trying to implement something into the workspace, even from a personal perspective, I might sit there and might try and, figure out, I love going to the gym, for example.
Yeah.
So, utilizing ChatGPT and AI in terms of, okay, well, how can I get, a good output? Because AI is it's just like a staff member. Whatever you put into it is what you get out of it.
Correct.
Give it shit directions and we'll give you shit directions.
I've been learning how to prompt it lately, and it's weird because now I've learned how to ask it to prompt me.
Yeah.
So, and that took a little while. Like, hang on, why don't I just ask you, have you asked what your ChatGPT's name is? I did. Mine's called Scout.
Scout.
It called itself Scout.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know. It just said it was quite honoured that I asked its name, and it said, "Well, I'll be called Scout." So, but like embracing technology, it's not so much just use chat and that. It's like I see AI playing a huge role in safety, especially with video surveillance of like wet areas and high liability areas where you can predict a certain thing, and I find that. Like, well, do I think it's going to replace our jobs? No. If anything, it's probably going to make us a little bit more efficient. Mm-hmm. I think we've got a productivity issue in Australia.
Definitely.
And it's creating, I think that's, people say, it's because of wars and that. I think we've got a lot of inflation in Australia because we printed money like drunken monkeys during COVID, but we need to be more productive.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying
to find an Aussie to work is finding a needle in a haystack.
It's also just finding my biggest thing, right, is convincing managers, okay, you want X, Y, Z, but I've got A, B, C, but they've got cross skill set.
Yeah.
Or you're just a recruiter, you're just trying to make a placement. No, I'm trying to make your company more productive.
Yeah.
You want this, doesn't exist, but I can give you this. So we've been taking a lot of industrial sparkies recently. I'll just give you an example, and having them retrained into auto sparkies, but for specific equipment you see, or we'll take industrial sparky and turn them into a maintenance sparky for, packaging and stuff like that, because we need to start thinking like that to get more productive. What's something that you've learned about managing people that's changed the way that you be a manager, be a leader? Like something that you've done something, shit, that didn't work. I've learned something from it and now I do it this
way. Look, probably a lot of heated moments where you don't think or stop to smell the roses and think, oh fuck, what have I just done? sometimes you have to bite the bullet, and even being I use the term leader, but being in management, there are times where, you've got to sit there and think, hang on, did I just make the right decision? Am I making it too hastily? There's lots of times where, especially when you're the business owner, where you can make a decision because you think, you know what, at the end of the day, whatever happens falls back on me. This is my decision. And then, that's why I think it's important to have, like I said, I think it's important to have the right people working for you who can challenge you at times.
Oh yeah.
About, because it is very hard. And that's why a lot of these businesses, for example, and a lot of businesses are obviously a lot bigger than mine, but who started as a family business, they stay away from having, owners as CEOs. Because
why do you think that?
Look, I think it's because they're neutral. And it isn't because, like I said, I think if I have a customer and he pisses me off, and it's like, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if he's spending X amount of dollars with me. If I want to be pig-headed and stubborn, I'll be like, well, I'm not supplying anymore. Whereas if you've got stakeholders that you need to sort of answer to, a decision has to be made which isn't based purely on emotion. So I think it's important to have people around you who can sort of, even though you may be the leader, but who might say, hey, John,
I've got that. I've gone to sack a few clients over the years, but then I've my backers have pulled me aside and said, I know you're pissed off, but they're paying their bills on time. They never question your invoices.
That's right.
And I know that you are having some sort of, and do you know what? All the issues that I don't know, you're probably similar yourself, where I've had with clients is because I'm tall and they get fucking intimidated.
Don't worry, mate.
And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? Why are we even having this fucking discussion?
Well, look, like I said, there's not many people who I come across who are much bigger than me. But
thank you. I appreciate that.
You came across bigger than me, and I actually hate it. It's actually one of the worst things. I like
really.
I like being the biggest in the room.
Oh, mate, you come and have a beer with me. I'll introduce you to plenty of guys.
But no, I get exactly what you're saying because things can be
trivial shit as well.
Because it could you know what it is. I think in particular, depending who you're dealing with, it can be misconstrued, and this is a problem with the political correctness of society.
Oh, fucking drives me fucking insane.
At the end of the day, if you're a big bloke in 2025, you're probably going to be number one, especially if you're and I say this politely as possible, but a big white Aussie bloke in Australia.
Correct.
Then you're probably
with not a very strong Australian accent.
You're not. You're like
a lot of people think I'm American. It's because I grew up in Adelaide and lived in London for 7 years, so I never had a strong Australian accent. But I've learned that, and you know what I love about Melbourne? I've never had a job here. Okay, so I came here broke in 2016. All right, and I've never had a job in Melbourne. I started as a sole trader. Built my way up, and that's why I'm very thankful to Melbourne. I know we've had our struggles as a state in the last couple of years, but obviously, food is a very big indicator of where we are in the economy.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I was talking to a guy the other day who told me that McCain's had just dumped thousands of pallets because of the use by date, which is uncommon for them, but not uncommon, but the sheer volume of what got dumped.
Yeah.
Are you starting to see economic turnaround in Melbourne from what you see as a consumer product?
Yes, I probably would say that this year is very, very slow.
Okay.
And I think most people I've talked to in the industry, be it chicken, be it poultry, be it poultry, chicken, be it meat,
I get it,
seafood, be it whatever it is, food service, coffee, they're all saying the same thing. It's very, very slow. Our sales are still there, but with that being said, there's nothing. No one's doing any better.
Okay, so
and I would say that a lot of the smaller customers are actually probably struggling more this year than they were last year, and it's sort of counterintuitive when you think, interest rates are going down. They're saying that cost of living pressure is decreasing, but is it really?
No.
Yeah.
Because property prices are turning back up.
And this is the thing, and this is where it becomes difficult because, and I think COVID changed Australia in a way which obviously it changed every country in a way which we'll never be able to to fathom again, probably in our lifetimes at least. Well, knock on wood, because I don't want to go through that shit again.
No, thank you.
But with that being said, like, COVID taught us a lot of lessons. It taught a lot of lessons in terms of how to run business. It's taught us a lot of lessons about relationships, especially relationships with suppliers and customers, things like that.
You have some very long-term farms that you've been working with.
Yes and no. The problem with the poultry industry in Australia is, and it's not necessarily a problem, I think it's probably a good problem. A good problem for them to have is that as chicken consumption keeps growing, it becomes a more in-demand industry.
Right.
So that's seen the likes of private equity in particular come in.
Yep.
So, the likes of Ingham's, that's public, Hazeldene's was bought out by a private equity company. So a lot of these, for years, it was just like this. I'd be dealing with the owner of, of a company face to face. When private equity comes in, you're just another number.
Right. So you're saying private equity is buying the actual farms?
Private equity have bought out certain processes.
Wow.
Which then in turn obviously changes management style.
Which then changes who you deal with.
Yeah. And look, farms are obviously, or they're always contracted. They're contracted to processes. So you're not necessarily dealing with the farmer per se. Say Tavis's farm might be contracted to X processor. So whatever birds he sells only to that processor. So we don't actually deal with anyone per se now. And that's what makes it sort of difficult. The difficulty is that it's become very corporatized.
Is that a challenge to?
It is a challenge
to scaling your business, because not that I've had my own dealings with private equity VCs with bigger, like the recruitment company I work with in the UK. It would seem to be that they've always the problem is with venture capitalists, they have an exit strategy. They don't buy for long term. They're not like Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Do you see that being a challenge? Because effectively, and I'm not saying they would do this, and especially we're talking on a public podcast, squeeze your supply of chicken if they wanted something.
Look, I think...
Not that we're getting the conspiracy theories here, but fuck, why not?
There's plenty of chicken conspiracies, I think, going around. At the end of the day, it's just, you know what, even my business I never thought would be... and it isn't corporate by any means whatsoever, but it's become, and again, it's just such a shift from how things used to work, and just it is even changing that mentality in your own mind. Like, who would have thought that every single order that I have has to have a purchase order, or I won't get paid? This is the thing that someone once thought of. Like, my old man never would have thought that'd be the case. But all of a sudden now, if I don't have a purchase order attached to that invoice, well, then I won't get paid from the company. Yeah. Because, obviously private equity's bought into, they haven't just bought into processes, but they've bought into, restaurant groups.
They have in a big way.
Yeah. Pub groups, all sorts of things. So everything along the line. And look, you know what? It's good because it's about accountability.
Yep.
And obviously for me, accountability is important because, one, I can't have people making errors.
Yep.
Mistakes cost money. At the end of the day, they cost money. So be it, something as simple as, one of my packers, he always gets wings mixed up with tenderloins. Now, the two...
Is he dyslexic?
Well,
that's something I would do. Being dyslexic, that would be 100% something I would do.
I actually don't think he can read, which is part of the issue.
Well, he sounds dyslexic to me.
So, but something as simple as that, packing off 5 kilos of tenderloins when it's supposed to be 5 kilos of wings, or vice versa, that gets delivered to a customer. The customer then complains and says, hey, we've ordered tenderloins. Why am I getting wings? And then sending out another driver to go pick it up to replace it. Like, it's money down the drain. So I just think, having things
automate or something like that,
having accountability and everything makes sense. So that's where I think, obviously times change for the better and the worse. There was a time where, for example, customers be like, don't worry about it. I'll just use it for something else. But now 90% of people, 90% of people who are in the kitchen don't even know how to cook it. if it's not on the menu, then they don't know how to cook it. They've only been taught how to cook certain things.
I see it with a lot of trades now where they get very good, very great, like a great skill set around that.
Yeah.
But suddenly, as soon as you introduce that or that, on paper, they've got the qualification. But then you go, oh, I've never done that. And that, I think when we talk back to culture about everyone gets a participation trophy, everyone gets that, it scares me because we're kind of we're setting ourselves up for a lot of problem because if someone can only do this, but they're not willing to do that, I don't know. It worries me.
Well, look, and this is where I say, back in the old days, my son, who's 10 years old, he always says, Dad, back in the old days, sort of 1995 wasn't the old days. But
calm down. Yeah.
But I say, the owners, the chefs, whoever it was, they'd be buying a whole chicken, they'd be breaking that chicken down, and they'd be doing whatever they needed with it. Now it's just, everything is just so focused around obviously the cost. So, it's going to be, well, if I have to cut up that chicken, well, now I'm going to have to pay extra labor, for example. But the problem is a lot of these cooks or chefs don't even know how to cut up the chicken anymore. So it becomes an issue, whereas, if you're getting the wrong product sent to you, it's not so much that, you could probably utilize it if you knew how to do it. But what becomes an issue is, oh, well, it's not on our menu, or, it's not on our cogs.
With all these free trade agreements and tariffs kicking off and, it seems to be governments here are taking massive, protections off importing fresh produce into Australia. We've always done it biosecurity. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for you?
Well, look, the good thing about, and this is why chicken in Australia will always be strong, biosecurity laws in Australia state that we can't import chicken.
Yep. Okay.
So unless it's cooked, and predominantly and I believe, probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's only if it's cooked in New Zealand it can come in.
I have no idea.
I meant the people out there who are watching.
Yes, making the comments, but be nice.
But no. So as far as we're aware of, there is no importation of fresh poultry, which is great. And obviously, with bird flu being such a easily caught disease, for example, there was a huge bird flu outbreak with chicken eggs in the last sort of year, which is only just starting to get better now.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Keeping that out of chicken meat poultry is really important. So it's obviously, as long as the government knows what they're doing, there won't be any importation of, there'll never be any importation of fresh poultry. But again, it goes down to things like shelf life.
I get it's all this sort of stuff. It's just, I just think with, cost of living pressures and, even though, COVID was over 5 years ago, I guess for all us Victorians, it felt like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
With, deregulations and this and that. How did you navigate COVID with GT Chickens? Because you would have had a hell of a time trying to get through all that. Plus now we've got all this you're a very resilient person, I can see.
Look, COVID was a very, very interesting time. Like I mentioned before, it was an eye-opener and it changed the way you have to do business. But it changed everything. It changed, just like I said, I think interpersonal relationships. We were stuck at home 5 kilometres. You couldn't deal with anyone. From the perspective of COVID and in particular just navigating how we got through it, look, it was difficult. It was difficult because as a Melburnian, we were the most locked down place in the world.
Certainly were.
We were probably down in revenue, 80% to begin with.
I went 93% in the first 10 days.
So we were like down 80 odd percent.
Yep.
And then, what sort of happened after that? It wasn't even so much the fact that government help was nothing. It was pointless. It was, whatever they gave you, it was just ridiculous. But look, at the end of the day, I think what it sort of highlighted was the fact that, for a long time, because chicken was such a cheap protein, we all used to deal with that. And for a long time, everything was very cash flow positive. For most chicken businesses, don't get me wrong, touch wood, we were lucky. There were probably others who were at times, weren't always cash flow positive, but because it was so it was cheap to buy.
Yep.
You still sold it for cheap, but there was still a margin involved. What happened was everyone's agreement, so even with my suppliers, it was 60 days, 30 days, 60 days. It wasn't uncommon. What happens is COVID hits, everyone shits their pants.
And they want it now.
And they want their money. So it was very, very difficult because especially dealing with suppliers who weren't Melbourne-based, because obviously
they didn't fucking get it, yeah.
So the issue was having suppliers who were, based out of Adelaide or based out of, Sydney. They had no idea. So they just said, oh shit, Melbourne's in lockdown. We're going to get our money off these people, cut you back to 7 days. And it's like, well, mate, how am I supposed to come up with
100 grand, 200 grand, 300,
yeah,
$4 million? That's
exactly right. The numbers are unheard of. And it's like, how am I supposed to cut back from 60, bring you back into 7, still try and trade at 20, with 20% of the business that I initially had, and, try and survive. So you know what? I think that's why
common sense was not that fucking common back then.
No, definitely not. But you know what? And that's why it was a real eye opener. And I say it was an eye opener for me as a business owner. It was an eye opener just as a general person, because you know what? A lot of people's true colours came out.
Fuck yeah.
And as a business person, I think, it showed you who was willing to work with you.
Yep.
And it showed you who probably wasn't. So it was good because we were able to sort of, sit there and say, all right, this, there was a time where we were, 100% only one supplier. Obviously, as you grow, you can't do that. So, but it sort of taught us, well, which suppliers are willing to sit there and say, we understand, this is not just you, it's the whole bloody world. And, it was the same with our customers. It was the same with, we had to work with our customers, because cutting someone off completely when they had no income, well, we weren't going to see our money. So that didn't work either. But the good thing that did happen out of that was that we all changed our mentality with credit terms. Probably the best thing that happened out of COVID was the fact that, yes, my terms with most of my suppliers may have changed to 14 and 7 days, but then inherently I had to do the same thing with my customers.
What I found with COVID was, again, we found out who are good things. My backers, Octec at the time, were really good. Like, I was with another company before them, but we made the change during that time. What I felt happened is like the government was doing things that just didn't make sense, right? And we were getting told by the federal government that we were being fucking, gaslit and all this sort of shit, right? Actual stuff. But what I felt came out of COVID, what changed in my industry was we do face-to-face interviews, but it's all done on Zoom video calls now. I'll meet the candidate on site or just before. COVID also made us look at our internal systems as well and really cut out a lot of the shit that we did not need. Like, I had 6 tender programs, or 5, got rid of them all. Actually kept one and, changed our whole, I doubled down on email marketing during COVID, like hard. Went and bought 15 grand HubSpot email marketing thing. My CFO went fucking nuts because I didn't tell her I'd done it. And just shit like that. Because I went to my 2008 playbook when I was working in London doing recruitment there, cut costs, double down on marketing, and then just fucking pray to whatever God that you fucking pray to. In my case, it's the recruitment gods to fucking get me through this shit, because I guess, this is, resilience is the whole base of my podcast. But I fucking love all these, people that say this is what you should do with your business, and they've never fucking done it. Yeah. They've never been there. And I'm like, mate, what you're saying makes perfect sense on fucking paper, right? Perfect sense. But you don't know my business. You don't know my people. You don't know their worries. You don't know this. You don't know the fucking dynamics. You don't understand this. Oh, but just do this and do that. No, you're just doing a fucking cookie cutter from what you did from your fucking corporate days at XYZ fucking firm, which probably doesn't even fucking exist anymore in the play done. And I think this is why big businesses like, Look at example, AMP. AMP used to be stronger than all the other fucking four banks combined.
Yeah.
Now it's a shadow of its former self because they didn't innovate. They didn't change. And I think what came out of COVID for us, sounds like yourself as well, you got to innovate.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Definitely. And if it wasn't so much, we had and the errors made by the government back then, they're too long to bloody talk about it on a 1 hour or 2 hour podcast. You need fucking a whole week. But things like—
I haven't done one of them yet. The Christmas special went close.
But look, I think one of the ones, for example, and I use this, it was COVID at that stage had become almost like this infectious disease where, it was a name and shame thing. If you got it, you were like a leper.
Yeah.
So
just do what I do, never test for it.
Well, that's exactly right. Or we could do a lot of a lot of the staff members did go get tested every second or third day to get paid from the government. So there was
you would have been. Oh,
so look, but our biggest issue was, and this is probably one of the biggest errors that they had made at that stage was, so being a business which was able to run, being what do they call it back then? They call it,
essential business.
An essential business. Yeah. We were essential because obviously we had to feed people. Now, essential people had no money to bloody eat, but we were essential. But with that being said, it was just such a backward way of thinking. So we had what they called an outbreak in our factory. So 2 people got COVID, and because 2 people got COVID, they tested positive. They wanted to shut down everything. So I got a phone call at 12:30 in the afternoon saying, "Hi, John, this is from the Department of Health and Human Services."
It's weird how they've got your mobile number in
it. So
it's just like, how the hell do you have my number?
And it was like, hey, there's been a reported outbreak in your premises. I said, an outbreak? I said, what, 2 people from one shift are sick? Oh, you got to shut shop. 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
I said, 2 weeks. I said, I've got $500,000 worth of chicken in the fridge with a shelf life of 4 to 7 days. What am I supposed to do? You can work till today, but then you got to shut down. And I said, no. I said, I can't do that. I said, that's just not feasible. And we were lucky that at that time they had employed occupational physicians to come in and sort of have a look at how not to shut essential businesses down. Now,
thank fucking Christ they did that.
I had others, mates in the industry, who haven't. 2 weeks, they shut them down completely. So we were lucky in that sense that we had to sit there, we had to get a deep clean. The next day, we were able to after an expensive deep clean, which was nothing more than sanitizing the place from
but you've got a big operation, so that's a big job.
And it was expensive. It was an expense which was at our cost, which the government didn't help you with. So it was like, well, here's this $6,000 bill to get a deep clean, which was nothing more than people spraying sanitizer everywhere. And then find, 50 odd people tomorrow who haven't been working in your factory to come and work. And it's like, okay, we're luckily, being a predominantly contracted employee business, it was possible. But the problem was it was just so illogical the way that they thought about it.
Oh.
And it was like, it was very, very stressful because I was supposed to run the business, but because I was there, I had to be at home. I had to isolate for 7 days. And it's like, well, how is this supposed to work? Now, what happens on paper and what happens in real life are 2 different things. So
don't know what you're talking about.
Don't know. That's exactly right. Don't know who went to work.
We don't talk about Fight Club here.
That's exactly right. But it was just like, you just thought to yourself, this is what, and this is where you just had to think, like, Jesus, like the government really had no clue how much it was impacting people. And even that, just, sending everyone home, you talk about resilience, like, all these people, they're like, shit, well, what happens now?
Rent, this, that.
And it also created a culture of complacency because people were getting paid to do nothing.
Correct.
it was a monumental fuck up by the government, which they really still can't realise.
Oh no, they realise. They just won't. They won't be big public about it.
That's right. And I think at the problem, it affected everyone from, the biggest of businesses to the smallest of businesses. It doesn't matter who it was. In one way or another, it affected them. But obviously when it's, when I'm sitting there trying to navigate through, you're down on turnover, your cash flow's down, all these sort of things. The next thing you know, you've got the health department saying, hey, John, you got to shut shop for 2 weeks. It's just like, where are you guys coming from?
People that have never run businesses, people that are coming from an academic, maybe, I'm not saying anything about academic background, but never run a business, never been in that position.
Yeah.
They don't get it or understand or really care, but not that they don't care about your situation. They don't care that you need to shut down.
Yeah. I think, and the biggest example of that was, for example, when we were allowed to reopen, we had to, again, pay the government to have someone come out, they were nurses, who really knew nothing about food safety.
Well, no shit, they're nurses.
But told me, for example, that there needs to be a sanitising station here, a sanitising station there. One of the suggestions was at that time that every time they picked up a new box, they needed to change a set of gloves.
How?
Well, we'd have to have an unlimited amount of funds to sit there. I said, is the Victorian government going to give me $500,000 to buy, I've got 50 staff members picking up, how many boxes a day? 1,000 boxes. I said, you know how many sets of gloves that is? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that then. And I said, well, it's just illogical. Like, we're not going to be changing gloves every time because you're scared that box might have COVID on it. So it was just, look, it was frustrating. And it was really, really, it was really a difficult time for everyone because it was like, we were at their mercy.
Yeah.
And that's probably the worst part. When you make decisions in business and you've made it yourself, and like I said before, if you make a decision and you fucked up.
Oh, I fucked up plenty of times. Trust me. I've millions.
You've either got to take it on the chin.
Yep.
You blame yourself. You can sit there. You can feel sorry for yourself. You can be whatever you might want to be. But when there's someone else telling you, and in particular the government, who's not paying your bills, sitting there saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, but do this at your own expense. It was extremely frustrating.
I've picked up a theme as we keep talking. You're very calm and collected with your thoughts.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And obviously we've all got mates, but you have the pressure on your shoulders of a family business, second generation, very good product, core to their core values. How do you, and I've asked this a few people, obviously you have a circle of influence, people that you come and speak to on a regular basis about this sort of stuff, but how important do you think it is as a business leader and as a business owner to have that circle of influence and a correct set of mates around you?
Look, I'll be honest, I think where life has changed for me, it changed significantly when I had kids. It changed significantly
100%.
For a number of reasons. And look, to be honest, it was, I had kids when I was 30.
Good age.
Good, great age, I think it's I sort of had my fun in my 20s and then, got married. The responsibility that comes with being a dad, it also changes your mindset in terms of, who you want around your family.
Yep.
And in particular, for example, my focus now has been, in particular since I bought out the business and I'm, the sole director, my focus has been on growing the business to a point where I'm comfortable. Things are, and we're almost there. We're almost there in the sense of, I don't need to be there 24/7, making sure everyone's, watching someone, looking over their shoulder. Making sure
it's not your style anyway.
That's right. It's not my style. So, what a lot of people are like, oh, John, you should be more involved. But at the end of the day, you only live once. And
amen to that.
You only live once, and money, it comes and goes. I'm not saying
certainly does.
That's right. It comes and goes. It can come and go in big.
Fucking amen to that. Yeah.
And in good and bad ways. But I just think at the end of the day, like, where I see and when I say it about my kids is like, they're obviously very important to me. I've got a wife, 2 kids. we're not going to be here forever.
Yep.
So, growing up, it was very, very evident to me, my dad not being around. My dad wasn't around not because he was out on the piss.
No, he was working.
Pub. He was working. And I was like, I was sitting there and I was a 15-year-old bloke and, I played footy, I played basketball, all that sort of stuff. And it was like, I look around and all my Aussie mates, their dads were taking them to footy.
Yeah.
My dad was still at work.
Yeah.
So I grew up with this whole, the whole Freudian concept of, I think most issues lead back to your mum and your dad. There's always going to be something there which at the end of the day I think could lead to, parenting styles. But for me, it was always like dad was never around and I never understood why.
Mm-hmm.
But I only really understood why when I became a father myself.
Yeah.
So it was very, very important for me when I became a father. And I think, and then again, sort of going into the business, it's my circle of friends went from, maybe 20 to 10 to now. I can probably count on 3.
I was about to say, mate, you did well with 10. Yeah.
Mate, I'll be lucky now if I could say I've got 2 or 3 close friends who I can, because you know what? Tall poppy syndrome in Australia is real.
Yep.
It's real. It's, no one wants to see anyone doing better.
I get that.
And to be honest, most of the people who I do associate with now are people who are in a similar position to what I am, because they can appreciate what it's like to be an owner, or to have the struggles of worrying about money, worrying about making sure that all your staff have a job. So finding like-minded people, there were blokes I went to high school with who were still doing the same shit they're doing 20 years ago. They're still doing it today.
Yep.
And I'm not criticizing them. It's not a critique whatsoever. Everyone's got their own path in life. For me, it was about, obviously some of the decisions that I made, I don't want to work forever. So if that means, that at 50, at 60, whatever it may be, I can sit there and say, hey, I'm done. I'm done with working. But I've tried to gain all I can and provide a lifestyle for my family, which is, healthy. Then that's what's more important to me. So, you know what? I think going back to that, it's important to have like-minded people.
Yep.
It's important to have like-minded people who, what's the saying? If you hang around 4 people who are all a bunch of dickheads,
you become the 5th.
You're the 5th.
Yeah, and I do exactly. All my really close friends are all directors, owners, because I remember when I first started in recruitment 15 years ago, right? As an independent recruitment. I've been in recruitment 25 years. There are a few of us, and I've been effectively my own setup for the last 14, 15 years. And I was married, I'm not married anyway. And then one of my groomsmen at my wedding turned to me and sort of just stopped talking to me and stopped that. And I said, why, what's going on? And he says, oh, my wife doesn't want me hanging out with you anymore because you're better. She thinks you're better. And they're doing it. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, what's the difference between what I fucking do for a living to what you do for a fucking living?
Yeah.
Oh, but it matters. It's fucking back in Perth. But like, you think there's something fucking, what the fuck's going on here?
Well, and you know what? Look, times have changed significantly and people talk about how they're feeling a lot more.
Yeah.
And so my background is obviously, like you probably know, we've talked about it. I study psychology.
Yep. I saw it on your LinkedIn.
So
some people want to talk about it.
For all intensive purposes, I should probably really be out there being a psychologist. So I
reckon you should do a TED Talk.
I don't know about that.
Why not?
Look, my background in psychology really stemmed from the fact that I had dealt with mental health issues throughout my life.
As we all do.
And it was, I guess, trying to figure myself out more than anything.
Yep.
Not so much like in the self-help way, but maybe if I can figure myself out a little bit, then I can help others figure themselves out.
No, it's not about, you see, it's about being aware and conscious of trying to work out what's going on. Look, I fully appreciate that.
So that's where, I think to myself, when we're talking about, business and we're talking about,
it's all connected, man.
That's it. Like there's so many blokes that I know who, and again, this is where I sit there and say, a lot of the people who I do associate with now are more like-minded individuals because they're like-minded because we're all sort of dealing with the same stresses and the same pressure. And you know what? People think, oh shit, you drive a nice car, or you own a business that you're rolling. No, it's not the case whatsoever.
No.
The whole, like we said before, everything on Instagram looks great. It doesn't matter. There's always a facade is really easy to put up. And so the thing is, I think there's a lot of blokes out there who, in particular, who run their own businesses, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves. For example, most of the pressure that is on me is internal.
Oh, 100%. I get that.
There's no one else sitting there saying, John, you have to succeed. John, you've got to do well in this. It's not my wife. It's not my family. It's really is internal. It's just me thinking. Now, obviously, there's the pressure of, hey, money's a real thing. It's, as real as we want it to be. But, there's obviously bills that you got to pay, and there's
100%
sort of things like that, which are tangible and they're real. But in all honesty, at the end of the day, you're sitting there, and we're working mainly for the government to take.
I don't know what you're talking about.
To take
GST, PAY. GST, payroll tax, FBT, company tax,
land
tax,
especially in Australia. In Victoria, it's luxury car tax.
Well, they're talking. Luxury car tax. The other one that sneaks up is
But we're working for them, and I think at the end of the day, I don't want this to be a conversation about the government, because probably
we've had deeper conversations about the government and they haven't shut us down yet.
But the point I'm trying to make is we're sitting there, and really we focus so much on these things that don't really matter. It does. The problem is it does. We need money, and in a perfect world, you'd be like, fuck. Fuck money, fuck paying the ATO, whatever it may be. Unfortunately, there's things that we have to do.
Correct.
But realistically, when you think about it, it's all meaningless, because God knows where you go afterwards. I'll tell you what, if I have to come back in my next life and do the same fucking shit again, then God forgive me.
I'm all for reincarnation, but I love factual facts. I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I'll tell you the three things I'm fucking scared of in this world. And it's my mother, my CFO Rachel, and the fucking ATO. Those are the three things that keep me up at night. If they're all good, my life is sweet. I'm a single and no issue there. I'm just my life is good. But people, I see it a lot in the car world, right? And they'll rock up in the latest XYZ, and then they won't drive it. Or I do a lot of car rallies, right? And I've lost count of the amount of people that will show up to the start line on a car rally, take all the photos with everyone, and as soon as the rally takes off, turn left instead of following everyone and go home. Time and time again. And I drive, and then I think, but in Australia, I'm all for tall poppy syndrome is fucking everywhere. And at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't understand with people that like us in our position, they don't see the 60-hour work week. They don't see you at 3:00 in the morning going, okay, I need to do this. I've got that. I'm sure, a lot of people have tried to knock GT off.
Oh, mate, it happens every day. We've got competitors who would play so dirty, or who play so dirty. Hopefully they're all listening.
They will be. But I'll make sure they do it.
But you think to yourself, we're dealing with chicken schnitzels, and again, because we are talking about people's livelihood, though, this is where it can become nasty, because competition becomes nasty. Why? Because of money, and that's what it is. Money and ego, the two biggest things.
I've had a couple of people try to copy us, and pretend to be us.
Well, that's the biggest form of flattery.
It is, but it's
fucking annoying though.
It is fucking annoying, because this is why I've had to go on the URLs and just go every single which way possible to own them all. It's great, you understand the food industry, you understand the chicken industry, I understand the recruitment industry, but at the end of the day, it's same. We take it all out. What I'm dealing with is the same things that you're dealing with. As GT grows, you're obviously supplying nationally.
Mm.
We've quickly spoken about export. I talk about this with my circle of influence, and I was just curious to see your thing. Where do you see potentially social commerce coming into your business, as in selling directly to consumer via a TikTok or an Instagram?
I think it's difficult for my line.
Yep.
Because we are, and look, I think it's difficult purely because our line of business, it's very volume based.
Yep, I totally
and
get it.
Low margins. So it doesn't really make sense
to go to direct consumer.
And this is where it obviously becomes hard because, feeding back into that whole cost of living thing and inflation, it's like, well, our prices really haven't gone up that much.
No.
They're not representative, and I'll have pub owners or restaurant owners saying, oh, well, we're going to get the Palmer up over $32. And it's like, well, my price hasn't really changed to you.
Their labor price is insane.
And that's exactly right. But for us, it's high volume, lower margin than, most, which makes it obviously important that, we keep pushing the numbers out. So that's where, look, I think social media presence is, look, I tried to do a rebranding and, most of it was done by myself with, the helps of ChatGPT and, and a few things. And obviously just, I think these days minimalism is important. I think it's,
It's the new thing, yeah.
Yeah, what I mean? Even, for example, like a lot of the things have just gone a lot more simplistic.
Yep.
I think, and that's obviously important. But it's hard as a wholesaler. It's hard to sort of maintain that presence because a lot of the end users don't know who you are.
But that's a great thing.
Well, look, it's a good thing, but obviously it depends. Like, because we're not in the retail market. So, for example, you're not going to see my stuff on the shelves at Coles.
Yep.
But, so I don't necessarily need, Joe Blow knowing who G&T Chickens is. But if you're owning a restaurant or you own a pub or you own a food service distributor, then, I want you to know who we are because that's obviously important in purchasing the product. So you've got to have, it's a sort of, I would like sort of, for example, Instagram, I think now, TikTok, they're two of the, more important ones.
Yeah, we're focusing a lot on that.
Yeah.
I've even started my own recruitment brand on it as me as a director back to TRS.
Yeah.
Which I'll talk to you about it off thing, which I think is fucking fascinating where people are more interested in your story.
Yeah.
As part of GT Chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I think that's, and obviously having younger kids and seeing, how, obviously they're not on social media yet. They're too young and I'm not going to let them. But, it's that fast fix social media which works, shorts, something which is 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds long because most people have the attention span of a goldfish. So
we were just discussing this. The shorts go nuts.
Yeah, well, look, and that's the thing because you know what? You can get more content out on a short than, someone sees a podcast and they sit there and they say, fuck, this is going for an hour and 10 minutes or 2 hours. How fucking boring.
It's weird. It is. I totally agree with you. But you'll have groupies out there for GT Chickens. I promise you. Because we had Bo from Beltwise, conveyor belts. Big industrial conveyor belts.
Yeah.
He's got groupies.
Yeah, I watched that podcast.
Yeah, so Bo, I'll introduce, Bo's a great mate of mine and we've been doing business together. He's a client that became a mate who I brought on the podcast. Still a client, but like you'll be surprised how much interest there is in chicken, in poultry. I'll show you, mate. I'll send you all the stats and you'll be like, people want to know about your production. They want to know about the equipment you use. They want to, the rise of AI and all that. Everyone wants to know. I'm fucking fascinated by, like, this podcast got known for a short about AI in accounting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it just exploded.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll be, that's Simon. He's the co-founder of Bullrush. And it's like, you'll be surprised what people say, oh, I watched this about you. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
And people are consuming content at a fucking alarming rate. in order to have a successful company, I don't think you need a personal brand. However, if you want a company that's growing, people want to know more about your business, the culture, your employment, how you employ staff, what's the shift there. If they could watch all that online, you would find your engagement.
Well, look, I think one of the things I can definitely agree with is that, there's obviously people in my business who know, like I said, I've delegated so many different tasks to so many different people because I do believe that they can do it better than me. But at the end of the day, the business is based on relationships.
Correct.
So, my product is about as good as I am sellable to other people. If I can sell myself, and then I can probably sell the product. And that goes for a lot of, it's the whole old, I'm not comparing myself to a used car salesman or a real estate agent.
I get compared all the time.
I definitely don't want to be a fucking real estate agent, that's for sure. But
you'd be a good one.
But with that being said, it's about, talking, listening. Most of our sort of, long-term partnerships with customers is based on the relationship, and it may be based on the fact I stuck by them during COVID, or, there was a supply shortage.
Loyalty like that,
it
gets you a long way.
And that's sort of one of the biggest things that, we are big on being loyal to our customers. And even if it means that at times we're not making money, but we're still keeping them happy. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not always feasible, and you can't do it forever, but there's times where it's necessary. And when it doesn't go unnoticed, I think that's where it's most important, because when they do notice it and they sit there and say, hey, shit, John did this. He did this for us, not because he has to, but because he wants to, then it's important. And that makes everything, fuck. Let's buy more of him.
Mate, well, this is what I was thinking. As your personal brand grows, how cool would it be for people to reach out to the companies that you supply or the companies that you don't supply, asking, is this a GT chicken?
Well, look, that's always a good thing,
And then just going, hang on, do you stock? Well, no, we don't. We stock X, Y, Z. And then, because you said venture capitalists are buying out your firms, who you're working for, companies are getting bigger, more corporate, more this. Probably personal brands, not even on their radar. They just go, we've got a branding and a marketing department for that. It's like, I go to trade shows, right? And it's fucking weird when someone walks up to me and says, I watch your podcast. I've never had it happen on the street. It's not that big for that sort of thing. But, in my area, in this, it's kind of weird, people will come up. But I'm still now getting known as a podcaster and then a recruiter. Yeah. We probably wouldn't have met if it was as a recruiter. Just another fucking recruiter.
Yeah, I told you to get fucked.
Told me to get fucked. You know what? Everyone fucking does. He's a great guy, but is he a podcaster or a recruiter? I told him to get fucked. But
we'll just pick one. Another one. Exactly. Trying to get my money. What do you want?
Another fucking $5
an hour.
Exactly. Exactly, man. But my industry is even changing. There's a lot. The barrier of entry into recruitment, right, is so fucking low. To get a license in Victoria, you just need a year of experience. Yeah. You got a little experience, and there are so many VC firms out there that'll back you with a year experience. And off you go, right? And people are trying to compete on price. The problem is, in order to supply good service, good food product, good hand, it costs, right?
That's right.
It costs, because every time you put a person involved, same with TRS, we have a very clean, very, very refined product, okay? But our product is not for the masses. Okay, because we're known for supplying hard to find people, straight, and that. But Jesus, you're expensive. I know, but that's what they cost. How do you, with feed where it's at the moment, and go back to my ag days and the price of diesel and agricultural and all the stuff support on the back end, are we eventually going to get to a place where it's a $40 Palmer? I think that has to be where we go.
I think is
not to say that you're trying to rise your prices. I'm not saying.
Look, I'd love to. The problem is I can't. Half of them are contracted in, so it becomes difficult. But with that being said, I definitely think as long as there's a demand for the red meat, beef, lamb, all that sort of stuff, chicken is still going to be very, very successful, and as it should be. It's a very, very good alternative. You can't eat red meat every day anyway. Chicken is a good protein. But if I see the way the market is going, they try to emulate what happens with beef and lamb. Beef and lamb go up, processors will then try and follow in poultry. Now, it doesn't really work the same way because these chickens. Why? Because they want to,
No, but why doesn't it work the same way?
Oh, well, it doesn't work that way purely because obviously the way chickens are bred, their life cycle, what are you looking at? You're looking at between 4 to 6 weeks for a chicken to hatch and then be killed, processed, and then on your plate as a parma.
Yep.
Whereas, it takes a hell of a lot longer for a nice
aged I'm very well aware.
Nice aged Wagyu.
Yeah.
So, and there was a time there where people were very, very focused on, I just want free range or, I want organic.
They still do, but they don't want to pay.
Well, that's exactly right. So as time, as the cost of living, continues to rise, it's like, well, there was a time where I'd say the customer told me, I only want this sort of chicken, this brand. And you're like, well, if you want that brand, you have to pay 50 cents a kilo extra. But it's the same shit as the other brand. They'd say, well, if it's the same thing, then, you just take whatever you get. And people are doing that now. So there's no difference in chicken in terms of like, grades, for example, like grass-fed or grain-fed like there is in meat. Obviously some brands are better than others. And
just what they're processing.
Just the way they process it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, they're all eating the same stuff. The feed's the same.
Yeah.
It's just about the way they're processed. But I just think to myself, costs of labor. I was having a chat with my banking manager, and I used the example of, and again, going back to being in the business for so long and having people who've been there for 40 odd years. So we've got one employee. He's the longest serving employee we've got. He's been there for about 37 years.
Jesus. So
I remember, and look, most of them are on national minimum wage. Okay, it's a blue collar job. So I sit there and I think back and from, the last time or the first time I could remember what the national minimum wage was, when he was working for us, it was like 14, 15 bucks an hour. Now, in this time, obviously this guy's aged, as we all do, unfortunately. So, in 30 odd years, he's still working for us. Now, in that 30 years, his productivity's decreased.
Right.
As obviously it would as you get older. You're not going to be as, fit and healthy as you were when you were 30. He was probably in his 20s when I first met him, and now he's in his late 50s. But the labor on him alone, has gone up every year purely because he's on minimum wage.
Correct.
So what are we? We're at $24.90 now, about 25 bucks.
He's
he's gone. So from when I can first remember him at 15, he's at 25 now. And progressively, his productivity's gotten lower throughout the years. So I just think to myself, this is great, but this is obviously what costs. The cost of living increases because as the government tells me that I have to pay a minimum wage staff member more and more money.
Yeah, and more super.
Obviously, that hurts my bottom line in one way or another.
Correct.
So whatever margin we have to put on, and to be honest, I think in the poultry game, like, we really don't put the margins that you need to.
But it comes down to value adding, Like you value add somewhere else, a new product line.
Yeah, look, and that's right. And you know what? For me, it goes back to that whole, family loyalty thing. You know what? I know he's not as productive as he was 30 years ago, but he stayed with us for 37 years. So at the end of the day.
You should bring him in and interview him.
He can't speak a word of English. So
that's fine. We're going to translate.
But, I think I say to him, I said, like, he's like my bloody uncle. And I said, you're useless now more than you were back then, but, you're getting paid more now. And he laughs about it. And
I think there's loyalty though. Loyalty is, you got to, loyalty's something that I think not a lot of people talk about. Like it's all about, I'll leave for an extra 50 cents or this or more this. But, people that are loyal with you, you talk about suppliers through COVID. Loyalty is something that is becoming less and less.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. What do you want GT Chickens to be known for? Like to be leader in here, growing into new markets, employer of choice, all of the above. Like,
look, I think we've been able to maintain a pretty decent reputation throughout the years. And
you're great. I mean, you're it.
And obviously, well, look, I'd like to think so. Look, there's definitely bigger out there, and our competitors will always. You know what? I think even though the population of Australia is small, there's enough out there for everyone to eat.
Correct.
So there's a lot of times where the whole aspect of competition, it is more of an ego thing more than anything. I think because from the perspective of, if you want to, grow and you want to do better, then by all means, no one should ever sort of hold you down. And if they are holding you down, then they're just shit blokes, shit people. And even if that's your competitor, well, that just sucks in general, because at the end of the day, the way I see it is, you know what, there's enough for everyone to eat. There's enough food for everyone on the table. Even as competitors, or even as, people in the industry that you might not necessarily get along well with, you know what, if we're all succeeding, then it means that we're all heading in a decent direction.
I love your view on the world. I love that. I think, unfortunately, though, there's fucking greed and other people's.
Oh man, look, I'm trying to be as diplomatic.
No, please don't be. The thing is, right? You're fucking good bloke. You're great at what you do. You got good management structure. Do you get it right all the time? No. Same with me. I fuck it up all the time. That's where I get a lot of synergy with you. Like, people accuse me of being too nice. You've been in the business so long that you trust your gut on something. Yeah. If something doesn't feel right, or you're like, no, we need to go in a different direction with this, or whatever, you do it. You listen to other people's opinions, but at the end of the day, you're going to make the decision based on the facts that you have at the hand for that day.
Yeah.
Mate, I think you probably have a business that a lot of people are fucking envious of.
Look, and I think unfortunately part of any sort of competitive nature is you are envious to someone. I told a few of the girls in the office about going on this podcast, and they're all excited. And they said,
"What are the girls' names?"
Val and Joe in particular.
Val and
Joe.
Hi, Val. How Joe? I will send you a message. He's doing well.
So they in particular, they said, hopefully so-and-so gets to see it. That'll really sort of rub them up the wrong way. So-and-so being our competitors. Now, again, I'm not one to sit there and, call out people, but, it is, it's a nice little, compliment to be, asked to be on here.
Well, I wanted to reach out to business owners in Melbourne. Didn't matter what, didn't have to. Everyone assumes that I bring on here as a client. Yeah. I've only brought on one client, two clients. Yeah, maybe one. There's more coming, but seriously, I just bring in people the biggest thing I recommend you could do is pick this up and start doing a video. Weekly, put it to your a work Instagram for GT Chickens, TikTok, because what I'll find is I reckon you've got a really fascinating story, how you started, you started in a different direction, come back into the business. You've been there since you were a kid. People want to synergize with that. I'm looking for a job. You got to understand, people are using TikTok and Instagram now to find work.
Yeah. And
that's the biggest thing that we were like, hang on. I love the people at Seek. I'm a big user of their products, and we're spending, a lot of money on that platform, but I need to stay relevant to where people are interest is going, and them applying for a job on Seek now, they prefer to apply to a job through TikTok and Instagram. I think that you could bring a lot of value to GT in there. It's just the discipline of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's something.
Because you're easier to talk to.
Thank you. I think I could probably talk too much, which is part of my
get a podcast.
part of my issues.
Get a podcast, man. Your podcast, your rules.
That's exactly right. Eh?
Yeah,
the podcast will be. I'm just talking. The other person's listening.
There's a lot of solo podcasts out there that are fucking very popular, man. Especially you could talk about industry chat. I mean, we haven't talked about industry and all that sort of stuff, but I deliberately didn't want to go down that route today because everyone else has probably spoken about that. Yeah. I was more interested in your management style, how you see GT, where it's going, how to bring in social media, personal brand. Because everyone that I bring on is they know they need to do something with their personal brand, but they don't know what. Mm-hmm. Or they know that I need to be doing more of this and don't know how to do it. So, James, he's in his happy place right now. He just edits. That's all he wants to do all day. Edit, film. That's all he does. We all bring things, but Is there anything else that you would like to talk about today? Because I've got a big list here, and we've pretty well smashed through that.
If there was to be any sort of, and it goes, we talked about it via email, we talked about it.
Yeah.
I've touched on it a little bit, and I think something that's really important to me is men's mental health. And one of the reasons,
let's talk more about that.
One of the main reasons why I am comfortable in talking is because talking is quite cathartic. You know what? Again, it goes back to, being around like-minded individuals. Sometimes, you just need to talk.
100%.
And, it goes back to being a business owner. To be completely honest, I was in probably the worst mental health space I'd been since I was a kid, just before COVID. So I was in a
fucking, then you got COVID as well.
Deep, dark place.
Yep.
Where everything was just like, life was, everything was going wrong.
Yep. I fucking know that.
Dealing with sort of the dark side of depression, dealing with, juggling being a business owner, issues surrounding money, being a new dad.
Balance, man.
That's right.
But it goes this way as well. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And you know what? COVID for me was it was almost a saving grace, because
tell me more.
It's sort of ironic, because when, I sit there, I'll complain about all the things that occurred during COVID, but I was off work for about a year. And this is,
I think we're all off work for a year around that time.
This is before COVID.
Okay, yeah.
So I was off work for a year, and I was really just in a deep, dark place.
Okay.
I was trying to work on myself, psychologist, psychiatrist, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what? For a long time there, it was just this whole shameful thing. And it's like,
I get that.
You know what? It was difficult, because, you're supposed to be, and again, from a physical standpoint, people look at you, they look at me, and they think, fuck, you're a big bloke. What can be wrong with you? And it is the old Aussie mentality. And, regardless of being, and look, not regardless, I think, especially coming from parents that have immigrated here, like whatever they've gone through, I'll never experience. And I think, and the hard part is, everyone walks their own path in life, and we all deal with our own issues. Now, what goes on in your head might be trivial to me, but in yours, it could be, it's the most important thing to happen.
You know what? I fucking fully agree with that. And where I think as a society and this is just, again, my personal views, and I'm entitled to them, is gone is that culture where catching up with your mates over a beer.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't have to be a beer these days, but just having that open dialect to have a conversation. When I was going through my liquidation, and I've done many podcasts about this, I was swimming in Jack Daniels for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, it wasn't the best time of my life. I learned a lot about myself. Health went up and down. And not that you need to go on a podcast or start your own podcast or talk about these things. I don't recommend that. Is like, it's important to have that circle of influence.
Yeah.
Because you're right. What I think is a massive issue doesn't even batter an eyelid with anyone else. A couple of us in the group have gone through divorces. We've helped each other with that. You want that nod. I think it's really important, especially for a guy, but for anyone, but especially guys, in my eyes, is that circle of influence where you can openly talk about it.
That's right.
Okay. And not be fucking judged for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or what are you worried about? You've got a business. Who cares?
Yeah.
The good thing about my circle is we don't discuss money as in we don't care. It's not because we've all got it. It's just we don't care. It's like, come to us with a problem. We'll have a chat. We'll go from there. But don't like that. That's kind of, and to be honest with you, I had to learn the hard way on that to get rid of a lot of fucking people out of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you don't serve me. I'm serving the group mentality. And I even do it to this day where, I'll have a fucking paradigm shift moment and I'll go, hang on a sec. Hey, this isn't two-way here. This is one way. And it affects your business style. And it also, it affects your management style, and in turn affects your business, which then affects your fucking culture, which then affects the fucking staff, which then affects every fucking thing. And you're wondering why there's something missing in the business. Why aren't we hitting these numbers? Or why are we not doing this? And you fucking realize it's because you're the head of the fucking the situation.
Yeah.
And if you ain't fucking right, nothing under your business is right.
Yeah, that's right. Look, so I think that's where, and I agree. And
Good.
it was
glad someone fucking agrees with me.
But look, no, like definitely it was, so it was a turning point for me because I was trying to juggle everything. And when I reiterate the whole thing about, trying to wear too many caps, trying to wear too many, it's a term we use in psychology a lot. You can't wear every cap at once. You can't be everything. And for a long time I was, because I thought that's what needed to be done.
Yeah.
But you sort of take a few steps back and you look at it as if you're looking at it from someone else's perspective, and you think, fuck, there's so many different ways that you can be doing this. And making life easier for yourself, and actually enjoying what you're doing. Like, don't get me wrong, no one enjoys really sitting there looking at chicken every day, which I don't necessarily. But at the end of the day, it's about the whole concept I'm trying to say is, it's about just appreciating what you do have, and not necessarily wanting more, and not in a way which is not ambitious, because I'll always be ambitious. Doesn't matter what I do.
Oh, 100%.
I think, ambition and greed are two totally different things. You can be ambitious, and you can be the most ambitious person in the world without being a prick.
Well, yeah, but it comes down to the core value of who you are.
Yeah, look, that's right. So I think, it's the irony behind it all. It was that it allowed me to go back into work, and it took my mind off focusing on the things that I was really stressed out about, which was ironically money. And, was I doing the right things by the business? But it made me focus on the task at hand.
Yeah.
And it made me more in the moment. And in that moment meant fixing what's going to happen today. How are we going to solve today's issues?
Yeah.
Rather than sitting there thinking, you know what, you always have to be in business. You always have to forward think. You always got to forecast things, and that's right. But you know what? You can't stress out about things that you don't know are going to happen.
Correct.
And that's about, I think, anything in life. It's just, at the end of the day, don't sweat the small stuff. And the other thing is you don't have control of every situation. So once I accepted that myself, and once I accepted, you know what, John, you can't do everything yourself. You're not going to be able to do everything yourself. Hire this person, hire that person, let them sort of deal with it. Let them take the ownership of it. It became just such an easier way not to just manage people, but to manage myself. And then by managing myself, then obviously I'm a better person, I'm a better dad, I'm a better husband. And, it makes it, a little bit easier to, sort of get through the daily struggles, because at the end of the day, you're going to have them every day. The shit happens every day.
What you've just said sort of sums up exactly who you are as a man. Like, you acknowledge your shortcomings, you've learned from them, you've readapted, you've changed, and you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
What's it?
And you've hindsight. Hindsight's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Especially as a business owner, you go, fuck, that cost a lot of money, or fuck that we aren't going to do that again.
Yeah.
And everyone's like looking at you thinking you've got to make the decision, and I think a lot of people misunderstand what being a business leader and a business owner. Business leader and business owner are two different very things. Like, for years and years and years at TRS Resourcing, called myself the manager. I didn't want to be managing director, and I always worked for TRS. And occasionally I still say I work for TRS. It's because I'm a servant to the company, right? Being a shareholder is a completely different fucking thing at the end of the day, because people expect you, because you're in that position, to make the right decision every time. It's impossible to make the right decision every time. The only thing you can fucking do is adjust. Okay, with the information that you've got to hand. Mate, I really appreciate your vulnerability today. I know it's a very big thing to discuss that, and I don't say that lightly. I'm really excited about GT Chickens.
Thanks, man. And look, my main message for anyone is, reach out if you need help. There's always someone. There's someone who's going to care, regardless of what it is. I'm one of those people. If there's someone out there who's listening, and again, this is not even wasn't even pre-planned. I think it's just part of this conversation. And listening to what you're saying about, like, if there's I've had people who've come to me and said, "Oh, would you mentor me?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm only 40 years old. I don't know shit about life yet." I said, "That's right." I said, "But you know what? I'm here to talk to you if you want." You know what I mean? So that's if someone wants to talk, and at the end of the day, have a discussion about anything really. I'm more than willing to, time giving.
Yeah, and this is why I think you doing a small video series and putting it out there as part of you as the MD of G&T Chickens would be huge, because people could get a lot of practical advice from you that isn't even chicken related. And then, but like, I think it'd be a great way to grow business. Because like I watched some of the stuff you did on that podcast, and I watched the videos you do there. It's weird. I've been asked to go on other people's podcasts, and I've been doing it. And I try to, and James and I always discuss it, right? But it's weird when you go on other people's podcasts, what you actually feel comfortable talking about. Yeah. And I've talked about shit on other people's podcasts that I never thought in a million fucking years I would talk about.
Yeah.
And people go, "Oh, I was really appreciated you heard that," because someone somewhere out there has already gone through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting times still in Melbourne. I agree with you. I don't think we're back to party times at all. And if you really look at it, I don't think the party times in Melbourne were that long. It's like it was a short amount. We've got a lot of debt to pay back as a state, and we're building train lines like we're.
We have no money for.
We got no money for. I put down the hype of the suburban rail loop to the Simpsons monorail. Like everyone needs a monorail. Yeah. Are you comfortable with what we've discussed? Anything else you want to go over?
No, man. I'm happy with it.
John, man, it's been fucking pleasure meeting you.
Thank you
very much. Very welcome. I'm looking forward to doing this again.